Wherever you are and however you are listening, thanks for being back with us on another episode of Winning the Moment. Today, we have the OG podcaster from Southern Utah, Trevor Cowley, in. You've probably heard of him from Real Business Owners, and something you might not know is he is on his way to doing 2 workouts a day for 1,000 days in a row. He's going to share his story of trials and tribulations. It's one you're going to love. Be sure to like and subscribe, and most importantly, enjoy the episode.
Yeah, it's been fun, man.
That's awesome.
It's been a transition.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you miss being at the accounting office at all?
I miss the people because I'm a big people person.
Yeah.
You know, I was big into the culture, and every day before I started my day, I went around and gave everybody knuckles and would share 2 or 3 minutes with every single employee before I would go. You know, I do miss those interactions, you know, with those people, and I'll stop by and say hi and give hugs and, you know, do the pageant wave and PR and whatever.
Right.
But more so for me because I miss it.
Yeah.
You know, and I know they do too, but it feels good to have something new to focus on where it's like, okay, I feel like I'm building a business again from
well, building's way more fun than maintaining anyways.
Yeah, you get it to a certain point and everyone thinks that, oh, now it's making so much money that you've got it all figured. It's just bigger problems, bigger headaches, bigger issues, you know? And so anyways, I'm not an accountant by trade anyways, or a CPA. So it's not like I'm sitting here and love numbers.
Yeah. How did you get into that?
You know, we got into it because Kel had worked at an accounting firm as a sales rep at one point, and we got to a point where we were having issues and problems with our CPA and accountant. We're like, dude, we could do this thing better than they can. Let's hire an accountant to come work for us. And then we did that, and then we started making it available to other people, and then it turned into a whole nother business.
Wow.
Right? And so it's just, you know, now it's this thing that ended up making us the majority of our money, and none of the owners are CPAs or accountants.
I love
right?
that.
So
I love
and that's
that.
why we got to the point where it was so big. It's like, man, we need a CPA to come in. And and actually do this, you know. I think we ran into problems because it's hard to spot check something that you don't know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I can relate to that because I'm a CFO and I never went to school. I'm not a CPA. So it's like people ask me questions and I'll say, look, here's what I think. Yeah. But ask a CPA because they know. Yeah. This is just what I believe.
Yeah. I mean, you could have a great perspective, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's your perspective, right? So anyways.
Man, I love that story that none of you guys are accountants and you created this huge accounting firm.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of accounting firms in town that are 50 years old that don't even do the revenue we do.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because they do it the old school way.
Do you guys have clients everywhere then?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah. We went nationwide and took our skills of being phone sales guys when we were young.
Is that where your background was in phone sales?
Yeah.
What were you selling?
I actually worked for Jeremy Johnson back
in
the day. Yes.
Wow.
But I was just a young kid. I was a setter,
right? Is
what they call it. You just get these leads and you read a script and then you hand it to somebody else and they go close it. You never know what's going on. Yeah. You know, like you're 19 years old.
You're just setting.
Yeah, just setting people up. And then I started making good money and it was like, sweet, let's keep doing this thing, you know? And then I ended up becoming a full-blown drug addict because I was on a sales floor, right? With a bunch of other drug addicts, you know? And then I got clean and, you know, we basically Kel never went down that path, but we ended up linking back up after I got clean and we took our phone sales experience and said, why don't we do this in a way that is different.
It's positive.
Yeah. But it's in a different industry, right? Yeah. In accounting. Yeah. And let's go nationwide with it, right? Versus going to church. And, you know, being a bishop and a CPA and having any of your people in your memberships or whatever that own businesses do business with you. I mean, that's the only way to rub shoulders anymore.
Yeah.
You know, especially in a small town like St. George, is if you don't go to church, you know, you're kind of on the outskirts.
A couple of funny things from that comment. So at my tech company, they have scripts, they have setters, they have closers. Yeah. And we have just opened up this new AI website builder. And so the CEO was like, hey, I need to get on a call with this client, run through this script. And I have never used a script in my life, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm a salesperson by nature, but just naturally.
Yeah.
So I got on the script and I was so bad at it. And so I came out after, he goes, how was it? I said, oh, I was terrible.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no, I heard. I was like, that's not on the script. I was like, I didn't know how to follow it because it's so that's not my natural
Yeah, it goes
style.
against your grain of who you are.
Right.
So then you're like, your mind's like, nah. He's stuttering while he's trying to read it. You're like, dude, I'm not really a bad reader, but this is just not me either.
It was so bad. I had no clue. And then the second thing is I didn't know that you had a drug problem.
Yeah.
What was it?
Heroin.
Really?
Yeah, for 4 years. I had a needle in my arm every day for 4 years, bro.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it didn't start that way. It's not like anybody starts out who's like a clean kid.
Yeah, put a needle in your arm.
And throw a needle in your arm the next day. You know, it was.
I didn't realize that.
It was a slow progression, but it ends up that way because you end up desperate. Started out as painkillers, dude.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's just like, hey, you want to get in the zone? And I'm like, well, yeah. I look up to some of these people that were making way more money than me, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I want to get in the zone. And they're like, hey, take this. I said, what is this? And they said, it's an Oxycontin. This is back in 2004 when nobody knew.
Yeah,
right.
There wasn't a Netflix show about Oxycontin.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was, even the internet was still somewhat new in 2004.
Yeah, right.
And I said, well, what is that? And they're like, it's kind of like a Loratab. And I was like, okay. In high school, I smoked weed and drank, and sometimes at parties somebody would hand you like a Loratab 5 when you'd have 1 or 2 beers and relax or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I've tried that before. It's no big deal, right? And so it was kind of non-threatening to me based upon, my previous
You didn't
experience.
realize that you're taking like a government sanctioned heroin.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because if they offered you heroin, you'd have been like, no.
Yeah, exactly. If they said it's like heroin instead of like a Loratab, like I would have been like, oh, no, thank you. Yeah. Like, okay, you went to the Sesame Street version of what it is, not the, OG version of what it really is, and so I was like, all right. So I messed with it. And I tried it, and they gave me a little teeny chunk, and I liked it, and I did start making more sales because I was so relaxed, I was so calm.
Yeah,
like you can smell desperation on a sales guy, right?
Sure.
And so it was, there was no desperation because you're just so chill, you're just loving life, and you're in the zone, right? And so my paycheck started to grow, and as my paycheck started to grow, I got just as addicted to the pills as I did a big paycheck. Yeah. Right. Because if this does this to my money, I want more of this thing. Right. And so that's what I did is I would take the money and I would buy more of that thing and then take a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then next thing you know, they're like, hey man, more bang for your buck if you snort it. And it's like, nah, I'm good. And then it gets to a point where you start running a little lower on funds because now you're more of an addict and you need it just to be able to show up every single day to even perform, but you're not performing anymore like you were when you were in the zone and it was new. Right. And so it got to the point like 4 or 5 months into it where I was looking at my bank account, I saved up like 8-9 grand as a 19-year-old kid and I thought I was doing okay. And I go just pulling money out of the ATM left and right. And then I go pull money out and check my statement. And it was like $500 left, like 4 or 5 months later, while I was making that more money for a period of time. Plus I had that, it had all got chewed up,
wow.
And so next thing you know, I'm like, okay, I'm running on my last leg here. So I'm going to try to snort it so that I can get a more bang for my buck, Right. And so I did that. And then it got to the point where I was even worse and worse in my addiction and the money dried up completely. Then it got to the point where I was so bad in my addiction, I couldn't even show up to work. Right. And then it got to the point where somebody's like, hey man, you can get more bang for your buck if you shoot it up. I'm like, no, I'm not a crackhead. There's levels to crackhead, to crackheads. And they're like, no, I'm not that guy. I eventually became that guy where all the other crackheads have said, at least I'm not that guy.
Yeah, right.
So like I was the example of I'm okay to justify what I'm doing because at least I'm not Trevor. Yeah. Right? Like, look at that guy. Fuck, his life is gone.
Oh, man.
And so after a period of time when I was like, I'm not crazy, you get so desperate and you have only just a little bit left and you have no money, you're like, I'll try it. And so I did that and that was the end of that. Within within a year time frame, I was using a needle and did that every day for about 3.5 years.
Were you not working then, or were you still?
No, I mean, I'd work for like 2 weeks to get a check, and then I'd be done. And then eventually it got to the point where I was running back and forth to Vegas with a buddy of mine that had money, and he would buy, 500 balloons of heroin at a time. And he would take some for him and give some to me and sell half of it and get his money back. And he would basically be able to fund his addiction.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like his right-hand man, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I was his muscle, I was a crackhead. But usually if there's two people when you're meeting and doing a deal, it's a little safer, right? Yeah. Anytime we went outside of our normal connection down there would be some issues. I've had a gun to my head. I've had a knife to my throat. I've been punched in the face. I've had a hammer thrown at my head. Luckily I ducked it and it hit the windshield behind me and busted the windshield.
Jesus.
But those were all like when we got super desperate and had to go outside of our normal connection.
Right.
And now you're connecting with other drug users more so than a dealer. And since they're drug users, they're just, they want to set you up for your money so that then they can get what they need. Right.
Wow.
And so it was a crazy, crazy time.
Well, and you were
life,
risking
man.
like trafficking and
it don't matter. At that point, you're not thinking about consequence, right? Like
Yeah.
you really worried about getting in trouble for trafficking while you're jamming a needle into your arm. You know what I mean? You're really
Your priorities
you're not
are-
thinking, obviously,
Yeah.
there's this prefrontal cortex is not thinking about future consequences of your today's decisions, right? And so it just removes all of that. It got to a point where, I got kicked out of my parents' house because they caught me, doing some deals and stuff out front. I'd put some stuff under a rock, and some people would come up and put money under there, and I'd go back out, and I got caught and then got booted and went on like a mile to a mile and a half walk with no money, no cell phone, no car, just the clothes on my back, wondering where I was going to go, who I'm going to call. I was going to walk to a gas station, ask to borrow a phone.
Yeah.
And so, I needed that 20 or 30 minute walk because I was like, man, this was like June and my birthday's in July. So I was almost 24 years old at the time. And I was like watching people drive by in their cars and seeing, people that are married with little kids in the back seat and stuff like that. And I'm just like, man, what the hell am I doing with my life? Like, is this is it?
Yeah.
And as I'm walking, I'm like, where am I going to sleep? Like, I started asking some very important questions to myself because I finally hit my rock bottom.
Yeah, I was going to ask. That was it. That was the turning point.
Was it, right? And so my mom pulled up like a mile and a half later and said, you have one more chance. We called the doctor. I have an appointment with him tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Do not get in this car unless you're ready to call it quits. And so that time with my thoughts is all I needed. I got in the car. It was called Suboxone for detoxing. So we went there, we got Suboxone, and we went into the mountains so that I had zero way out.
Right.
Right. And I had to face years of bad decisions on that mountain in a camp trailer, just going through my withdrawals, throwing
That's
up, diarrhea,
real painful,
pain.
right?
Yeah. Very,
How long did the
extremely
withdrawals last?
Yeah, I mean, 7 days, 8 days, something like that. They last a little bit longer than that, but you don't feel normal, obviously, just on day 8 or day 9 or 10 or whatever. But in terms of pain, like the first day or two, you're getting anxious and hot sweats and, kind of panicky and some pains. But by day 3 and 4, it's extreme pain. And so from day like 3 to 7, you have 4 or 5 days there where you would just do just about anything. It's almost like when you have a headache, you just, oh man, like, where's the aspirin or ibuprofen or whatever? Like, I just want to get rid of this. This is so painful. It's like that times, 100, but cold chills, hot sweats, throwing up, diarrhea, you're in so much pain that you'll punch yourself just to try to like, it's a mess. But the cool thing about it is when I was in that pain, I made a promise to myself that I will never do anything to put myself through this type of misery again.
Yeah.
Right. So I handled my business up on the mountain, 15 years ago.
Were you by yourself? Or was your mom up there with you?
She was up there.
Yeah.
But I was so far up there. There's no cell service up there. I didn't have a cell phone anyways back then.
Yeah.
Because they were still somewhat new, and some people had them, some people didn't. But my mom had one, but the service didn't work where we were at. Right.
Yeah.
So there was I call that an environment where there's no way out.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I think there's a lot of lessons in that people need to create an environment where there's no way out. Like if you really want to make a change, right? Because you can say you want to change, but you stay in the same environment that you're in. It's going to be very difficult to change who you are when your surroundings don't change, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyways, that was a fun, part of my life, and, something that I definitely don't regret at all. It's part of who I am. Do
you think that is what allows you like the mental fortitude to do like your 1,000-day, 2-a-days?
Yeah.
Like those got to be connected.
Well, I think what that exposed to me in terms of what and how I live my life now is I'm an all in person.
Yeah.
So in other words, like, when I was doing drugs, I went eventually all in and got to the point of using a needle.
Yeah.
Right. I was the crackhead of crackheads. I was the king of crackheads, right? Like I was
you were the best crackhead.
Best crackhead, dude. Like if you're going to be a crackhead, be great at it and go deep, right? And crack your head, but I don't know how to play the middle ground, right? Like that's a strength. And also it's a weakness.
Well, that's why you got to know your vices, right?
Correct. Right. And so it's like, I don't just run a mile in the mornings. I run 10 miles every single morning. I don't just do 75 hard and do 2 workouts for 7. I do it for 1,000 days. Right. Like I set big, extreme. I'm an extreme person. I don't own one business. I own 5 different businesses, right? Percentages of it, even the podcast that we have, it's a top 1% podcast in the world. My income, top 1% in the world. I've made millions of dollars. Like, so I don't know if how to play small or how to go halfway or kind of do something. Like if I'm going to give it my time and my attention, it's going to be 100%, whether it's good or bad. Yeah. Even when I drank alcohol, I have 4 DUIs on my record. Cause when I got clean off of drugs, all I did is turn one addiction into the other. Oh. I felt like there was a time of my life where everybody went out and partied from 19 to 24, young, having fun, college. I missed out on that. But I thought I wasn't doing anything bad because you could buy it at the store.
Right.
But I was the life of the party, right? Like the party shuts down at 2 a.m. I'm driving across town looking for another one, shit-faced. Yeah. With a 30 pack in the back, looking for somebody that's like me that wants to keep going, and then getting pulled over. So it's like, I have to be very careful about the environments that I put myself in, and be very conscious about how I design my life. I don't kick it. I don't hang out. I don't go out. I don't go to concerts. I don't do things with groups of people. I just don't. That's just not my style. Because Trev Dog is what we call him, might come out. What's that show where it was like, they were like chanting his name and he ends up streaking.
Oh, it's,
with Will Ferrell.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
And he's like, no, I can't.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to Home Depot.
Bed Bath & Beyond tomorrow, big day,
Bring your green hat.
And it's like, that's me, dude. Like you get me on the opposite side of 3 drinks, and I see number 4 or 5, I can let it rip. So
does any part of you miss that you can't have that social aspect because it could be dangerous for you?
No.
None? Not
at all. Not at all. I'm more happy and more fulfilled than I've ever been. And I feel like I'm living out my purpose more than I ever have before. All of that other stuff to me. And again, everybody's wired differently, dude. Yeah. Everybody is wired differently. Like I said, I'm extreme. I go all in. People aren't wired like that, right? Like, the needle in the arm, that's an extreme situation. Yeah. The 1,000 days is an extreme situation. Like, I'm not saying the way that I choose to live my life is right for everybody, but I'm a big proponent of people doing a lot of different things, trying, just about anything and everything, becoming self-aware, getting to know themselves and what makes them tick, and then designing and creating a life around that.
Yeah, that was my takeaway when you were talking, is your awareness of who you are and how to make the most of your life.
Well, isn't that the point? Like, if you're a marketer, right, what you do is you start running ads, and then you take a look at the data that you're getting from the ads to do what? To tweak, change, adjust so that you could get better results. Then you run it again, and then you look at the data. We're getting data on ourselves every day, every year as we get older, right? Why do you think people say, how many self-aware 20-year-olds are there?
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of data on themselves as an adult.
Right.
They're not going to be that self-aware because they haven't put themselves in a ton of situations as an adult yet. But by the time you start getting into your 30s or late 30s, like myself, now I've got 20 years worth of data. I know what I do when I'm around alcohol after 10 o'clock at night around people. I get in fights, I go to jail, I get DUIs. That's just the data that I have on myself. So why would I want to put myself in a high probability of something bad happening type environment for me? I just won't do it, right? And so the idea is get data on yourself like a marketer would and adjust your actions to the data that you're receiving. You, as you sit right now, are all the data that you need. Are you living in a way that is creating the life that you want and the feelings and the emotions and the experiences that you want? And if the answer is no, because you are the data, you know how you feel, you know if you're on fire or on purpose or living in a way that you should. And if you don't feel that you are, then utilize that data to your advantage. You're a big boy, right? We're adults. Use it, adjust, change, tweak to get to the point where you can optimize yourself so that you can feel good in your body and mind. And then you design a life around all of the things like, I move my body. I feel good when I do that. I'm going to make that a staple. Yeah. I'm going to make that a big part of my life because every time I get done with it, I feel in a way about myself, a sense of pride, and I feel proud of myself. There's no greater feeling that exists on the planet than a human being feeling proud of themselves. Right. Right. And you can go chase all the money that you want. There's plenty of people that have a lot of money that are depressed. Yeah. Not proud of themselves. And they're not proud of themselves. Yeah. Right. Like, that's an issue, dude. And so for me, it's like, cool, I've made some money. Cool. That, like, the things that I was hoping that money would bring me wasn't underneath that rock. I looked underneath that, right? And don't get me wrong, that rock's nice. It's a beautiful rock. I love the rock. Like, it paid my house off. It did, all it, like, it affords me a lot of things. Now, I don't need a big luxury life. I don't. I moved out to a small town in Virgin, live in a nice little quaint house on a big chunk of property, and that fills me up, right? That gives me fulfillment. And I started to go the other direction where I bought a big 1 acre lot in the back of Little Valley. That's the old road that goes towards the air. Bandit Hills Drive is what it's called. I was going to build the big Parade house home because when I was young and I was poor, that's Stone Cliff, that's success, right? Like a house on the hill. So I was just kind of going with the flow of what society says success looks like. And if you don't do those things, then you're probably not successful, and other people might not think you're successful. And so for me, I started going down that, but I lost all motivation when I bought that, and I didn't want to build on it. And so I had to, take that data, right? Realize it wasn't for you, and make some adjustments. And so, what do I want? Right? I want land. I want my kids to be able to run around on acres. I want, an orchard. I want to be next to the river. I want to create different, unique experiences for my children and find a place that I can call home that brings me peace, right? I don't want to drive into, and no offense to anybody that lives out there, but it's chaos getting in there. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to drive out there and have to try to look around and be like, man, my $100,000 car's a piece of crap because they got $150,000 or $200,000, I don't really care to play those games. I drive a basic truck and my wife drives a basic van and we live in a basic house but we own everything that we have and we have money in the bank, and that is a life that we designed that feels good to us, that brings us happiness and brings us fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
And that's not for everybody. And the way that you live is not going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
And the idea is not to try to live Cody's life or Trevor's life or this, that, the other. It's just to be like, okay, wow, these guys are starting to figure some things out as they get older based upon the data that they have about themselves. What data do I have about me and what excites me, and how do I want to design my life around that, you know? And so,
Well, what I love about what you said is that knowing who you are and knowing like, I can't be out of 10, I can't do these things, or someone who is not succeeding in life and feels like, ugh, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're taking Oxycontin or Adderall
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And I think when people are willing to share those, you could call them a failure, but they're not, because they made you who you are.
Yeah.
But when you share those stories and someone can see that, like, if I just make the right choices, just because I'm wired this way doesn't mean I have to behave that way.
Yeah.
Because I can choose to take that focus and just shine the light somewhere else.
Yeah,
You know, I think that's a real inspiration.
dude, I don't think people understand how close they are to a lot of amazing things. Just a few minor tweaks and adjustments that could be made. It's called long obedience in the same direction, right? And in other words, consistency.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's holding people back from the life that they say that they want, because anybody will say, man, I want to get healthy, and they'll go hit the gym really hard for like 3 or 4 months, start seeing some results, and then they fall off and they go back to square one. Like, why would I start down a path just to go back to square one? Long obedience in the same direction. As long as I keep going, even on the days I don't feel like it, eventually I'm going to be way far away from where I was, versus starting over and only getting to the point where I keep getting here and then falling back. Right. And so
It's amazing what happens with time. Well, even for you, I was going to ask, were you always a fitness focused person, or was that like a newfound thing you found on this journey of 1,000 days of 2-a-days?
I mean, as a youngster, I always looked up to athletes.
Yeah.
You know, I'd look at them and be like, wow, like I admire them.
Yeah.
You know, and it got to the point for me, and yeah, so at a young, here's the real story.
All right.
Here's
perfect.
the real story. Okay. First day of 7th grade. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. A 9th grader came up to me and said, "Hey kid, the elementary school's that way." And him and his buddies laugh, you know, hitting each other. You know, they're the big dogs of the school now. They're 9th graders.
Was your school
you know?
7th, 8th, and 9th?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And so, and I went to Pineview Middle School, and literally right next to it is an elementary school. So it made a lot of sense, you know, like, hey kid, you know, and I was small. I was really small. I weighed 69 pounds in 7th grade. And the only reason why I know that is because I signed up for tackle football, and the coach said, "Oh, give it up to Trevor Cowley for coming out, lightest guy on the team, 69 pounds." He announced it in front of everybody. And I was like, fuck. So these little experiences when I was young, I was like, man,
that's so tiny.
I need to start hitting the weights.
Yeah.
I need to, like, life ain't going to be that easy for a small guy like myself. Right.
Yeah.
So I need to beef up and be able to protect myself from situations like this, right? I'm going to show the coach. I'm going to show these guys, right? And then, you know, from 7th grade, by the time I hit 11th grade, I was 165 pounds, right?
Wow.
So there was a big adjustment. So yes, there was this experience that said, shit, I am small and I need to make myself bigger and more intimidating. But I did love the process of lifting weights in the summertime and, you know, getting better. Can't wait to go back to school to show people that I am a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. So there was that kind of early on. Obviously, during the drug addiction period, didn't really care.
Yeah.
You know, looked like a crackhead, you know, small, you know.
Probably got back to 69 pounds.
Yeah. I could have been a jockey. I was 99 pounds, you know, small frame and ready to go.
Well, what started the 1,000 days of 2-a-days? So for people who are listening, 75 hard, 2-a-days for 75 days. And then, now your 1,000 days is going to end September 27th.
It's 28th. I re-looked at it and it's September 28th. Yeah.
Are you going to do anything cool for that?
I'm actually throwing the Real Business Owners Community Live event here in St. George, September 28th. And then when that's over, there's going to be people that will go to the gym with me
And do
to
your
get
last
my
workout.
2000th workout with me. And so that'll kind
That's
of
fucking
be,
awesome.
yeah, be the icing on the cake.
I love that.
Because they would have been with me kind of through that journey.
Well, I've been
right?
watching it, and it's
Yeah.
like now if you're listening and you're not watching, Trevor came from the gym because you got to make it work, right?
Yeah.
And this fool's
Yeah.
got shredded 6-pack now.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that? How old are you?
It's 39. I turned 40
Look at you.
in a month and a half.
Who would have
right?
thought when you were a crackhead you'd have a 6-pack?
Yeah, I
40
probably
years
had a
old.
6-pack as a crackhead too, because I mean, if you weigh light enough, they'll show.
I mean,
you know?
it's amazing to watch
Yeah.
because that's such a level of dedication.
Yeah. I think it's actually easier to live my life than the life that other people live, to be quite honest with you, because it's very predictable. It's designed. A lot of anxiety is created based around unpredictability to the brain. Right. And so people talk about the rise in anxiety and people dealing with anxiety out in the world. And and I found this out because I was listening to a thing about children. Right. And it said, hey, your kids need some predictability, right? Like the same bedtime, or if you're going to do bedtime stories, be consistent with it, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Their brains need some sort of consistency so that they don't get anxiety. And I'm just like, man, there's so many people that don't really ever even design their day. Their day just is coming at them, and they get filled with anxiety because it just seems like things are happening and they don't even know what their day
They're being
looks
reactive.
like. Yeah, I know what my day looks like. Yes, it was hard to get into the mode of doing that, and there was a lot of, there was a guy on Facebook, man. He sent me a DM. What are you doing? Give me your work. I'm like, dude, you don't want it. Because I have the data. I know what I've had to go through in order to be where I'm at right now. I'm like, dude, you don't want to run 10 miles every single morning. You don't want to go to the gym for 45 minutes, an hour after running 10 miles. And I've seen some darkness in my mind. I've seen I would call midnight of my mind through that journey when it's 26-mile-an-hour winds some days and I'm running, or days when it's 16 degrees and it's snowing. I mean, when it's 100 degrees outside, I've seen every situation that weather could throw at me. I've seen every situation that my body can throw at me in terms of how I could feel, whether it's a headache, whether it's being sick, throwing up while I'm out there, not necessarily running, kind of like zombie running / walking. And
that's amazing to think, because obviously you've been sick, you've had vacations, you've had special events,
all of it. Yeah.
Anything you can think of over 1,000 days. There's literally not an event that wouldn't have transpired over that time.
Yeah. I was in California like 2 weeks ago and had to get up at 4 a.m. because my wife and kids wanted to be at Disneyland by 8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was up just running in the middle of the night down in California. Like I'll make it work, right? And that's the thing is, when you're truly, truly committed to anything, you'll make it work. You'll figure it out. Like everything is figure outable. As long as you want it bad enough. And so for me, that the 1,000 days came off of the back of, making a lot of money, doing really well, and looking under that rock and saying, well, that didn't bring me everything that I hoped that it would. Yes, that brings an aspect that I do want, which is financial security, but it didn't bring me a bunch of joy, happiness, fulfillment. I didn't wake up and, cartwheel out of bed just because I had $1 million in my bank account.
Yeah.
Guess what? When I made that deposit and it shifted to $1 million in the bank account, I was still the exact same human being going to bed and waking up the next day. Nothing. I still lived in the same house, drove the same car.
It's hard because people who don't have that can't imagine that to be true.
I know. And I was that person, right? If I was watching somebody else say the same thing, I'm like, yeah, right, dude. That's why I stayed so focused and so committed to money to get to that point, because I figured that wasn't true, and that there would be,
a sense
something
of,
else.
Yeah, it'd be different. All of a sudden.
It would be different, and so, and I'm grateful for it because it made me do the introspection and ask myself those questions and say, what does make you happy? And it was, moving my body and I enjoy the way that I feel. And I did look up to athletes, and I'm like, well, why do I have to have an event of the Olympics or this or that to actually live a life like an athlete?
Yeah.
Like I don't, in reality, if you've ever been an athlete, some of the best times, yes, when you were doing it, it didn't feel like it. like the practices. I mean, game time happens once a week.
Yeah, you spend more of your time preparing for sports than doing the sport.
Exactly, right? And so if you're looking back as you get older and like, man, I really miss sports, and no, you miss the grind.
Yeah.
You miss having to overcome a weaker version of yourself when you wanted to stop, but you didn't, which gave you a sense of pride. And when you got that sense of pride, it made you feel a certain way about yourself that you liked, right? You were probably in better shape and, all
doing
of
the
these
right things, making better decisions.
All of it, dude. And so it was just like I was asking myself those questions. I'm like, man, I really missed playing baseball growing up and being around like these people and going through the training and waking up early, even though I didn't want to, wiping eye boogers out and showing up to practice.
Yeah.
The smell of the grass and like all of these things. And so I was like, then I heard Michael Phelps say, man, I was in the pool every single day for 5 years straight. And I was like, man, what if I can build a life where I'm training like an Olympic athlete without at least his carrot was the Olympics.
Yeah.
I don't have a carrot.
Right.
I'm actually just doing it solely for the process of what it's going to turn me into, because I got to the point where I realized that all the gold was in the friction and in the process and in the days where I'm throwing up and don't want to do it or have the headache. Hindsight's 2020. There's never going to be a time that you're going to look back at a friction in your life and say, man, that was, I didn't grow from it.
Yeah.
You will always be able to look, and so it just got to the point where it's like, how can I create a life that's built around temporary friction? People that go to church, they pay like a 10% tithe, right? And that's 10% of their money. I'm paying 10% to my body and to my mind by working out and exercising for 2.5 hours every single day, right?
Yeah.
There's 24 hours in a day. That's
the golden rule.
Yeah. So move your body, move your mind for, 2.5 hours every single day.
How long does
the
10-mile run take you?
Depends on the day, dude.
Yeah.
Depends on how I feel. It depends on, if it's wintertime and it is
cold,
snowing outside and my body's never warming up. It depends on how many hours of sleep I got the night before, because I can feel everything. Did I do a cold plunge and kill the inflammation the day before, or didn't I? How good did I stretch, or didn't I? Right.
Yeah.
And so my fastest time on 10 miles, I did it an average of 7 minutes and 58 seconds. So right under 8-minute miles. But I would say on average per day, I'm right around, 10-minute miles. I'm not trying to like break any world record. I'm just going out to get it done.
Yeah.
And then there's days where I'm in pain and I'm slow and it'll be 11 or 11:30. The days that I throw up or I'm sick or don't feel good, sometimes those are 15, 16-minute miles, because I'll run just like super half-ass and then just get to the point where I can't anymore. And I'm just one foot in front of the other, and I just tell myself, this is temporary. This is temporary. Like in 6 months from now, you'll look back at this if you don't do it and completely regret it, because this emotion and this feeling that you're feeling right now won't be there in 6 months.
Yeah.
And you'll wish you would have.
Even when you're done, it's not there.
Even when you're done.
Yeah.
My bed is going to still be there in 2 or 3 hours if that's what it takes me to walk it. I don't care. What I do care about is making the deposit mentally for myself, so that I could feel the way that I continue
Andy
to feel.
Frizella's got to have you on his show when this is over. Have you reached out to him?
No, but that's one of the reasons why I chose the 1,000 days, is because he said that, he said, show me the last 1,000 days and I'll show you why you are where you are. And so
I love that.
And so I was like, 75 hard. Okay, cool. And then he said that, and I was like, man, that would be. I set a goal that I didn't even think I could accomplish.
Doing 1,000 days of anything is hard. If you said like drink a gallon of water every day for 1,000 days, I'll probably miss some days. The most basic thing, drinking water, which you need, doing anything for 1,000 days like that, and what you're doing is unbelievable.
Well, I decided. Do you think Michael Jordan was better at basketball than the guy that invented basketball?
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So he perfected what somebody else invented.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mindset, I was like, he said that. Show me your last 1,000 days. And he invented 75 hard. I bet you he hasn't done 2-a-days every single day for 1,000 days. I'm going to do it better than the guy that invented it.
I love that.
You know, and so somebody's got to be the person that takes something to the next level and sets a standard of what's possible, and that stretches other people's minds like, man, well, what if I lived a life that was committed, or could I do that? Or every time I've set a goal, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do that. 1,000 days.
1,000 days.
Or then the 10 miles. I'm like, I started with like 4.5 to 5 miles a day. And I'm just like, wow, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. Like, why did I even tell other people that I was going to do 10 miles a day?
Right.
Right. Because I know how I feel at 5. Like, that's impossible. Right. But then it's just incredible what your body and mind does when it gets put in the same environment. Something's going to give. Either you're going to give and you're going to quit and give up, or it's going to conform to the environment. It has no other choice.
Yeah.
Either you'll break or you'll become
it's really
stronger.
a battle between your mind and your body, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what would you attest your mental fortitude to? Because all of this is, to me, it's so mental. Like,
very much so.
You know what I mean? Because
Very
all
much
of
so.
us can put one foot in front of the other. That's not hard,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But it's mentally, like, how do you do that on those days that you're sick? And like, what would you attest your mental strength to?
It's, I don't know, man. I got sick of watching other people live an amazing life. I would watch like a David Goggins or this or that, and I would feel a certain way. And then I got to the point of thinking, I was like, if I feel that way, just watching somebody else do it, what would it be like if I did it myself?
That's awesome.
Right? Like, it's like watching a Rocky movie. Everybody walks out thinking they're a boxer.
Yeah.
Man, you don't know, mess with me in the parking lot.
Right.
Right? You think you can kick anybody's ass because you're walking out with a feeling.
Right.
And this movie gave you that. But like, cool. David Goggins made me feel, oh, wow, what a badass. Good. Guess what? That dwindles and goes away 10 minutes later. That motivation's gone. That inspiration's gone. And I'm like, well, why would they keep doing it every single day if it was so shitty? There's something on the other side of it that I just don't understand, and that other people don't understand. So he's a human. I'm a human. I'm willing to endure pain. He's enduring pain. I can be disciplined. I know I can. I've seen pain. I've dealt with withdrawals. I've dealt with, whatever. Right. And so it was just like, I don't know, man. I felt something in me finally say, just do it, dude. See how far you could take your potential. Everybody has it in them. Very few extract it through their actions and creating these environments. And so I got very committed, very dedicated to saying, okay, it's so much easier to live a life like this than a life of being depressed for 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
You feel like shit every day, all day. Guess what? I feel like shit and have to fight my mind for the first 2 hours in the morning or the first hour and 45 minutes.
And then you feel great the rest of the day.
And then when I'm in the shower, I'm like, hell yeah, another day down. I did it.
Yeah.
And there was times where I got overwhelmed and I was like, man, how am I going to keep doing this? And then I would be like, I don't. All I got to do is wake up tomorrow and do it.
Yeah.
Why am I thinking about what I got to do 6 months from now when I just need to do it today?
Yeah.
That's it.
Being present.
Yeah.
Well, and think about the example you're setting for your kids. Like the belief that you're giving them in themselves by the belief you have in yourself.
Yeah. That's a big, there's not just one single thing when you say, hey, why, what's the mental, it's a lot of different things. It's the way I felt about myself, the way that I felt when I watched other people living an amazing life, knowing that was laying dormant in me because, Goggins was a 300-pound man. I've never been a 300-pound man. So you're telling me he overcame that and I don't even have to overcome that?
Yeah. Right?
Like, why can't I do what he's doing? Then I've got kids. Then I've got, other people. I feel like I'm a leader in my organizations, a leader of the like, if I'm going to ask you to do something, I want to do it times 10, just so that you know that I'm not asking you to do something that I wouldn't do. I'm doing it 2 times. If I ask you to move your body once a day for 45 minutes for you to feel good about yourself, I'm going to do it 2 times every single day just to show you that it's possible to do what I'm asking you to do. Right. So I'm not going to just take it to where I'm telling them to go. I'm going to take it way past it just so that if they ever have that thought in their mind that they'll be like, well, shit, Trevor's doing it at 10 miles and he's doing 2-a-days. And so if he can do it, then I can do it. So if I can be the reasoning in their mind, so to speak, of why they end up executing and becoming better because of that execution, then I feel like it's my responsibility to continue to show up the way that I am, so that I believe everybody can make a ripple effect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's made an impact on me for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, this is what I feel called to do. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I can't explain it, and nobody will ever know. It might sound crazy or say, nobody needs to understand except for me, right? Like the problem is everybody wants to be understood by everybody else, but then they feel lost in their own body. I would rather be understood by myself and have nobody understand me. There was a kid that sent me a message on Facebook, and he was writing me or whatever, and I just liked the message. I'm like, I can't, you know, I get all random messages, you know? And then he goes on to this long paragraph, and he's like, I just tell you that so that you can understand where I'm coming from. And I said, that's your problem, bro. You need other people to understand where you're coming from. That's what's causing you all your turmoil. Why do I need to understand you? You need to understand you.
Right.
Right. You there's no reason to explain yourself to me. If it makes sense to you, then do it, dude.
Yeah, I think socially and just economically, that's probably a problem that we see, is everyone trying to make everyone else happy versus making themselves happy first.
Yeah, looking around, is everyone approving?
Yeah.
Of what I'm doing? Like,
and really, the people who get the furthest are probably the ones who half the people don't approve. You know what I mean?
Dude, the majority don't, because you know, I can't tell you how many times people are like, well, you don't have to keep doing that. You don't. Guess what? My mind tells me that some days too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, you know, at one point my wife was like, you know, I did 38 miles and was going out for my second workout. Is okay, running for 9 hours straight, that's not good enough. And like, we haven't had this confrontation since, but I was just said, look, I don't know why I'm doing it fully, but I feel called to do it.
Yeah.
I feel the best that I ever have in my body and mind, and I can't even explain to you what's in me that's making me do this, but I am trusting the whole process, and I have faith that whatever's in me telling me to do this is going to guide me and lead me somewhere or impact somebody's life that I'm supposed to impact. I don't know where it's going to take me and what, because this was still kind of early on. Now I'm almost 40, right? So that was almost 2 years ago,
wow.
right? I was still early 6 months into the process of doing this, right? And so it's like, it was this kind of, and I said, look, I'm done accepting average or mediocre in all areas of my life. Finances, my health. I'm going to go to the extreme. Why? Because we all have the ability to do it. And why would God give you potential for you not to extract it? If I gave you a Ferrari, I would expect you to probably take it around the block a few times. How disrespectful would it be if I gave you something so beautiful and then you never take it for a spin?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Ferrari's meant to be driven.
It is meant to be driven. Guess what? So are we.
Yeah.
The potential that lies dormant in us is meant to be extracted. And the only way to extract it is by going through friction. That friction, that chipping away at what's in us is, I mean, dude, it's a beautiful, beautiful process. And the majority of things that I utilize now to have the perspective that I have involve some sort of discomfort. Right?
Yeah.
And so,
well, I always like to say, if you're not uncomfortable any part of your day, you just didn't grow.
Period.
You know?
Yeah. I stay very, I mean, dude, I don't remember what it's like not being sore. And that's what's cool is at first I was hoping like, well, eventually my body will get used to this and I won't be sore anymore. Like my body's going to change. It's going to, and then it got to the point where my brain predicts that I'm going to wake up sore. So therefore it expects it. So it's not that hard to perform sore.
Push through it.
And how I looked at it was like, okay, well, Kobe Bryant, you know, broken fingers or this, or he would still shoot his free throws with a, you know, in a sling and this. He was used to practicing even through pain so that if he got injured in a game, it was normal.
Yeah.
he could still perform at a high level. Now, if you back off when you're in pain to rest and to recover, then you get injured or something happens in a game.
You have to stop.
Now, either you have to stop or you're just not used to, and you could try to force yourself to perform, but that's so new to you. You don't understand how to perform with that ingredient of pain mixed in, right? And so it got to the point where if it's so normal now that it's not hard for me to perform when I'm sore. You know, now it just takes 3 or 4 miles to knock off the rust, you know. It's like and then my body is like, okay, here we go.
Did you love running before?
Hated it.
Do you love it now?
I call it a coin, right? A coin has heads and tails, right?
Yeah.
I love it and I hate it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, is the coin heads or tails?
Yeah.
It's still the same coin.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, it depends on the day. I love what it does for me mentally and what it does for me physically. Do I enjoy the entire process of running and, you know, beating my feet against the street for an hour and 45 minutes every day? No.
Yeah.
You know, but do I like the result more than I hate having to do that? Yes. So therefore I continue to show up.
But lifting weights, you do love that.
Yeah.
So that's probably
everybody loves that.
Yeah, that's
everybody
nicer.
a nice little pump, you know. So I use running, you know, for peace. It's a form of meditation for me because
well, and how
I'm out there
often
alone.
would you have an hour and 45 minutes to think otherwise?
Yeah.
Like if that
It's a
wasn't
busy
a part of your
world,
life.
right?
You know what I mean?
It's a busy world, right? I've just barely started putting headphones back in, but the last like 3 months I've ran with no headphones, no nothing, no music, just me with a meeting with my mind.
That's great.
And so I do that for more peace and calmness, and then the gym I do it more for ego and confidence. Let's move some weights. You know, so it's the duality of both is what's beautiful to me. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Real Business Owners. So you talked about your podcast earlier being top 1%.
Yeah.
256 episodes out so far. I think like 693 reviews, all like 4.9 stars. Like you guys are just killing it. What's that story, and where's Real Business Owners headed?
What's the story about the podcast?
Yeah, like what got you guys motivated to do it? Yeah, and what kept you going for 256 episodes?
Well, what started it originally was we went out to a Gary Vee event in 2019, I think January 2019. It's called Agent 2021, and he said he calls it Agent 20 because he's only going to do it from 19, 20, and 21 because he says, I'm going to give you guys information here that's going to be relevant to everybody by the time it's 2021. So I'm going to stop doing it. So, and part of that was, hey, if you guys can afford to be here, that means you can afford to hire a videographer. And I'm highly suggesting that you guys do that because within the next 3 to 5 years, everybody's going to be doing it. And the attention, is going to get more and more expensive. And so go all in as much as you possibly can right now. And so when we came back from that, it was like, okay, yeah, let's do that, you know, all excited or whatever. And it was probably 2 months later, we're like, yeah, we need to get around to that. Yeah, we need to I was interviewing a guy for a sales position, and he goes, well, I can't start for a couple more months. I said, why? He's like, well, I'm going to college. I said, well, for what? Why are you in my office for a sales position and in college?
Yeah.
You don't need a degree here, bro.
Yeah.
Like your skills will determine whether you continue to work here, not your degree. And he's, oh man, I promised my mom that I'd get a degree, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, in what? And he said, in film. And so I was like, okay, we meant to do it, but the universe just dropped this human in our lap, right? And so I was like, okay, well, why don't you start working for us right now part-time, but instead of sales, you come in as a videographer. And that's what he did. So he came in as a videographer part-time for the couple months. He graduated college, came in full-time, and we would film stuff. We'd post it on Instagram under our Easier Accounting account. And it was kind of weird, like camera sitting in a chair, like, okay, go.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what the heck? What do I say? I'm not that cool, you know, like, all this stuff. Like, anyways, you feel the imposter syndrome, 100%. All that, you know? And so anyways, within a year or so, that account went from 0 to almost 10,000 people. And through that, within 3 or 4 months, people were like, "Oh, I like your stuff. Do you guys have a YouTube channel?" We're like, "No." "Do you guys have a podcast?" We're like, "No," because it was little 60-second tidbits, and they're like, "Where can I get more?"
Yeah.
Right. And so we're like, "Oh, well, let's do a podcast because people are asking for it, and then we'll post it on YouTube." Right. And so then and it was like, well, that's going to obviously make our life easier too, in terms of creating content to where we don't have to just sit in a chair and say, go.
Right.
We get to just have kind of conversations about stuff, and then it happens naturally and organically. Right. And so that's what it did. And then the Instagram on Easier Accounting got shut down about a year later when we were right around that 10,000 mark. And I logged in on a Sunday and it said, couldn't find the account. I was like, what? Oh, it's just a glitch or whatever. And tried again and again and realized it was shut down.
Really?
We were doing giveaways like $500, hats, shirts, like stuff like that. I guess on the giveaways, you're supposed to put a disclaimer at the bottom that Instagram's not responsible for these giveaways. That's the only thing I can think of, because after,
why it got shut down?
Yeah. Because we talked to a bunch of different people, like, oh man, that's weird, because there's naked ladies on pretty much on Instagram, and they're fine. They're not getting shut down, and you're an accounting company giving out business information, and you get shut down. Like, how weird is that?
Yeah, social's a weird place.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, the devil's at work here. Anyways, so I was super frustrated by that after spending a year building that account. My heart was going into it. And then it got to the point where I remembered The Rock. He was on like a balcony or something telling a story saying he got cut from the NFL team and that was his dream. But little did he know it was redirecting him to be where he is at now. Yeah. And so I was like, man, I can't get too frustrated. This is redirecting us somewhere. Where is it redirect? If I stay in a state of frustration, then I'm not putting myself in a frame of mind to create a solution. I just stay frustrated, right? And so I was like, okay, it's happening for us. Like, this is a good thing. I don't know why yet, but just remain calm and don't make any sudden moves, right? And so within like 2 weeks, some thoughts started coming to me, and like, well, nobody wants to follow an accounting firm. That's not fun, cool, or sexy. Right. I'm like, I own an accounting firm. I don't even want to follow it, like, and so I was like, how can we camouflage it to the point to where it's relatable to them, the people that are following. Even if it's a good piece of content, it's less shareable because it comes from a business, and a business always has an agenda of trying to have you become a customer, right? And so I was like, let's camouflage it. Let's call it something that's relatable to our avatar. Our avatar in an accounting firm is real business owners. If you own a business, we want to do your accounting, right? Yeah. Who are we? We're real business owners. And so we named it after, I had a couple different ideas. It was owners and operators. It was real business owners. Like, I wrote down a list of these, right, that identified us and our avatar, right, to kind of merge it and bring it together. And so we did that. I called a meeting and said, hey, I got an idea with my partners, and I went through it, and they're like, real business owners is available? I'm like, yeah, I've already checked these before I talked to you guys about it. And they're like, let's get that one. And so we did that. And then within literally 10 months, we had 50,000 followers, because it wasn't an accounting firm. Yeah. It was like, I'm a real business owner, and it was a lot easier to grow an account back then than it is in 2024. Now we're just stagnant at 133,000. Yeah. But we got it up to 80, 90,000. And the community was amazing. Engagement was super high. And then a dude reached, and then the attention started getting more expensive when we were running ads trying to grow the account. And so I stopped. And a dude reached out and said, man, I can get you followers. Da, da, da. We do shout outs on other Instagram pages that have 1 million followers and this, that, the other. I'm like, okay, cool. At least if they do a shout out, somebody gets to still pick and choose whether they follow our account. Yeah. Right. And to me, that's good. I don't want to pay for fake stuff. The problem is this company, in order to continue to get our money every single month, they were fudging the numbers and sending fake accounts saying, look, your shout outs are working so well that you guys grew by 5,000 followers last month for that $3,500. Yeah. It's a pretty good return on it. Let's keep doing it. Yeah. So we went from 80 to 90,000 followers to 120, 130,000, but the majority of them were bots. Before I found out, because our engagement started going way down, I was like, no, we're growing and this doesn't look right. Yeah. And so that kind of screwed up the account in terms of our engagement, in terms of all of that. And we haven't fully recovered from that. But, anyways, it's a mishap on my part.
Social's a crazy world.
Yeah, man. It's a crazy world, man. So, I mean, I could buy likes and comments and views and this, and the majority of people that you're looking at, they do.
Yeah.
It's super frustrating to me. It looks like I bought followers, but it was by
indirectly.
shady people, right? And so that's how RBO came about. And then it got to the point 2 or 3 years in, people were like, you got a mastermind? Do you do da-da? Kind of every time that we've made a move, it's been kind of the community asking about it over and over and over. And then
I wanted to have you talk about that, because one of the things that's been the biggest standout, this is episode 57, is that so many people who are achieving great things in their life are investing in coaching in some capacity. In some way, shape, or form. And so I believe that's what your RBO, like Inner Circle. And so talk a little bit about that for the listeners if they want to be a part of it.
Well, the reason is because, one, we attended that Gary Vee event that helped us a lot. And then we started investing into masterminds. You know, we got to the point where we're spending $6,000 a month to meet up with like Ed Milet, Andy Frisella, and the Arte Syndicate when it was super early on. And they capped it at 100 people. You know, our income jumped from a couple $100,000 a year to 400, from 4 to 8 to 8 to 1.6 million.
And you attest it to those masterminds?
You know, networking, new contacts, not necessarily just information. A lot of people are like, well, I'm pretty good at, cool, great that you're good at business. But if you know 500 other business owners, your opportunities now expand by 500, right? So that's why they don't say your knowledge is your net worth. They say your network is your net worth, right? So we were really investing into these masterminds to be around other high level people, because that's who you're going to do business with, not necessarily the person that's created the mastermind. Right. So my job is to curate and create an environment, to put good people in the environment and let good people do what good people do. And they do business. They share perspectives. And if you have a bunch of different perspectives from a bunch of different industries, hey, this is what we're doing in our industry. Maybe there would be some crossover. You should try it over here and see if it works. Right. And so it's a perspective game. And if we get a bunch of people that are good human beings that want to grow personally and professionally in the exact same environment, it's a beautiful thing. And so it served us really well. People started asking for it. And then, you know, now I have a big passion for it in terms of, you know, serving and helping. And I'm not going to say I'm special or I'm something great or so knowledgeable. It has nothing to do with that. I've already said I'm a big believer in curating environments and designing your life in a certain way. My job is to curate the environment, period. Right? So I'll be the lighthouse, put the good people in there, and the good people will do what they do. But we have the Inner Circle that's $400 a month. And then we have what we call the OG family members.
And what do you get with that Inner Circle?
So on the Inner Circle, we do 2 Zoom calls every single month. And then you have an accountability group with 6 to 8 other entrepreneurs. You guys will determine when you guys meet based upon your schedule. We just facilitate it with the Zoom. We'll send you guys the links. And then when you're done with that one, you let us know when the next one is, and we'll do that. We encourage at least a minimum once a month. Some people do it twice a month. Then we have what's called micro meetups, where people can come to the Real Business Owners headquarters up to twice a year. We have designated dates. They can RSVP. We cap it at 10 people so that it's a intimate environment where we can go over their goals, what they're doing. People can, again, share their perspectives, kind of mastermind. If you read Think and Grow Rich, it talks about the concept of a mastermind is putting people together in a room where they share intellectual knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what these micro meetups are. And then we have what we call the RBO Community Live event once a year, which this year happens September 28th in St. George, Utah. You know, we only have like 30 seats or something like that available. But so again, we try to keep those still small, 100, 120 people, so that, you know, it doesn't feel like an event. I want people to come together and have it feel like a family, like a community. And so that's the Inner Circle level. The high level, that's $1,500 a month. We meet up quarterly for 2 days at a time. We've gone to Mexico. We've gone to Glacier in Montana, North Carolina, Laguna Beach, Las Vegas, St. George. I mean, we go around to cool places because day one we do a classroom style where we're learning, and then day two I create an experience, whether it's renting a yacht in California for $25,000 with people serving hors d'oeuvres and a piano man, and flying helicopters. The one that we're doing in North Carolina next month, day two's we're going to split up into teams, do paintball against each other in a rub course on day two.
That's awesome.
My belief is if me and you share an experience together that we don't have an experience ever with anybody else, our relationship now deepens. It's called an anchor experience. So if me and you fly in a helicopter and we don't even know each other, and that's your first time and that's my first time, even if it's my second time, it's still a unique experience. We are now bonded through that experience, and we're now closer. So my job is to, again, create those environments where relationships can be curated and those anchor experiences happen where they, know, like, and trust each other. And,
man, it's so cool to see where you guys have taken it and what it's evolved into, and we were talking before the camera. I mean, gosh, it's a lot of work to do a podcast, and now you've done 256 episodes. That's a lot of dedication.
Consistency. Long obedience in the same direction is what we talked about. So I guess we're holding true to that.
That's a perfect segue to the most important question of the podcast, but how do you define success?
How you feel. How you feel.
Yeah.
If you don't feel good, then you're not successful. It doesn't matter.
Like that.
It doesn't matter what's happening external. Cool. Go get in the Lambo, go get in your private jet, but do you feel good?
Yeah.
That's
a great answer.
That's not success if you feel like shit.
Yeah.
Right. Like I had success financially. Yes. But when I looked under that rock, it didn't give me everything that I wanted. I would rather have way less money and feel good about who I am and be proud of myself and live the way that I live now versus having millions of dollars and being depressed. And so success to me is feeling good in your body and mind. And if you feel good in your body and mind, to me, you're living a successful life because you can't be doing all the wrong things and feel good in your body and mind.
Well, what's great about that perspective too is you can feel good about yourself at any stage of your life.
Yeah.
It's not like you can feel good at 20.
It's nothing outside of you.
Right.
Nothing outside. It's your actions and your habits every single day. Period.
I love that. The reason I like to ask people that question, you alluded to it earlier, but a lot of people, society tells us the success is that rock.
Yeah.
Or it's that acre lot in Little Valley.
Yeah.
Or it's that X amount of expense car. And so I think so often our young generation is in pursuit of those things.
Sure.
And no one ever told them like, hey, actually, you just got to feel good. Like how much less stress and anxiety would they have if they knew all they had to do was feel good?
But they believe that those things will bring them a certain feeling.
Right.
So that's why they're chasing it.
Yeah.
They don't feel good, but if they have that car, they're going to feel good because they know what it feels like seeing somebody else have it.
And I think that's why it's so demoralizing when they get the car and don't feel good because then they're like, shit.
Yeah. I talked to a mastermind member just the other day and he goes, man, the process, I said, it's all there, bro. It's all, I said, why do you think I did the 1,000 days? It's an entire process and I wanted to get lost in it. He's like, I remember as a young construction guy looking at the guys pulling up in the brand new F-250s and thought like, man, that's so awesome. He's like, now I'm the guy with the brand new F-250 and it's nothing. It's just what it is. And I realized that it was in the process of growing into the individual that I am that can afford that $130,000 truck. That was really what makes it special because now I just wake up and it's just my truck.
Yeah.
And so how can he recreate the process that he lived in to get the truck? Because now he realizes that's where he felt the best about himself.
Well, and I feel like the real opportunity for us as thought leaders is to say, how can we help the younger generation understand that? Like, or can you only know it through experience?
Yeah.
Is that the only way to get it?
I think so. Unfortunately.
Because what a gift you could give them if you could change their mindset to understand that.
Yeah. It's very, dude, that I was the same way. I'm going to live how I'm going to live and prove everybody wrong because that will bring me happiness. Right. And then I had to figure it out for myself. Unfortunately, you say, don't touch the stove. They're still going to touch the stove. And that's just part of the game, right?
I guess that's life.
They've got to figure that out. Right. And then you could say, I told you so. Then eventually, if you say, don't touch this, don't do that, and they do it all anyways. And then now they're getting information and they're getting data like, okay, well, maybe Cody knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You know, now they're 30 and you can now give advice to somebody that's done all the things that you told them not to do and realized why you told them not to do it.
Yeah.
Now their mind gets cracked open a little bit. And once it's cracked open, now they're susceptible to change.
That really goes back to mentorship and masterminds and
Yeah.
why that's important, because that's
Yeah.
essentially what that
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
That wraps us up for today. Thank you so much for being
Yeah.
here. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with? Any message that you wanted to share today you didn't have a chance to?
No, it was a pleasure speaking with you, man. And you know, I hope people do something with the information that they listened to today and extract their full potential and, you know, really figure out what life's all about, because it's a beautiful thing on the other side of discipline. So
I always say life's too short to not enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, find
Yeah.
happiness in what you're
Yeah.
doing. If people like this episode, they want to connect with you, what would be the best way to do that?
they can check out at Real Business Owners or follow me personally on Facebook, just Trevor Cowley, Cowley. You'll find me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Good luck
Yeah.
on the rest of your 1,000 days.
Yeah.
And I
Thank
want to
you.
be there for that last workout.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
Trevor.
you.